All right, we do want to acknowledge as well the Orange Bowl committee members who are not only in the room, but some of them are out in the hallway there. Tim Bailey is here, Vicki Matthews, Mark Doucette, and Mark McCormick are all wearing the orange jackets and members of the Orange Bowl committee. So with that, I will open it up to Stanford defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. And Coach, you've been in town a few days now. Talk about your preparations and how things are going for your team getting ready for the Discover Orange Bowl.
Things have been going good. We really liked our practice facilities and the hotel we're staying at. We did a lot of our preparations the last 2 weeks back at Stanford, and we're just kind of repeating that process here and kind of having a normal game week, trying to have that.
Perfect. All right. We do have a microphone floating around the room, so if you can grab Rebecca's attention, and she'll bring the microphone over for any questions for Coach. You're going to start, Rebecca, all the way over here to the right.
Yeah, Vic, when you got the job, since it had been so long since you'd been in college, been a college coach, I guess you never really coached technically in college or whatever. How did you go about kind of preparing for the differences in the game and in the months from February to, say, when training camp started, to kind of refamiliarize yourself with the college game?
I watched a lot of tape. I did. Got as much tape as I could and watched, just try and focus on the offenses that are different than you see in pro football. Particularly the spread offenses, the one that feature the option game, out of the gun, all the bubble screens. Kind of studied extensively the types of offenses and plays that we don't get in the NFL that you get in college football, because it's a lot different. In college football, as I said to some guys, there's a lot of formations that you can use in college football that are illegal in the NFL. So 24, 26 years in pro football, I never saw them. So, I focused on that, those plays that are being run out of formations that you can't use in the NFL, focused on the option game, focused on the spread offense, those types of things. So a lot of film work and talking to coaches. I've visited some coaches around the country that I'm friends with, and the coaches utilize the coaches on our staff.
All right in the front row on your right.
Hi, Vic. Can you talk a little bit about Tyrod Taylor? You've faced running quarterbacks before this year, but just wondering, how does this guy stack up with what you've seen, and how do you plan to contain him?
Well, he's tough to contain. He's obviously the ACC Player of the Year with good reason. He's very athletic, strong throwing arm, playmaker. When you watch him play, he's like the point guard of a great basketball team. Guy just makes plays many different ways. And our biggest challenge is going to be able to tackle him in open spaces, because as you can see, that's where a lot of his stuff comes from, and their team feeds off of that. So he will be hard to contain, as their running backs are also, and we'll have our work cut out for him. He's similar to the guy at Oregon, and I think the guy at Oregon State that we played in the Pac-10.
We do have a second microphone in the room. We're going to go over here to the left.
Vic, Scott Fowler from the Charlotte Observer.
Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Long time no see. How are you? I have a question, given all your pro experience, about Andrew Luck. Whenever he does end up as a pro, can you just talk about what sort of quarterback he is? Give a little scouting report on him, and will he be a good pro quarterback?
Well, I definitely think when the time comes, when he deems the time to come out, he's got a great future ahead of himself in the NFL. He's got good size, got good athletic ability. And then I think, most importantly, as a quarterback position, he's got great intangibles. He's a leader. He's got a great feel for the game of football. He's an accurate passer, which is extremely important. I think he got a great demeanor to play the quarterback position in the NFL. He doesn't get flustered. Tremendous work ethic. You can go on and on and on, and the guy, has got what it takes to succeed at the next level in every aspect. Whether he needs another year of college to help him prepare for that, that's a decision him and his family are going to have to make. And, you can draw comparisons between himself and Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning knew he was going to be the #1 draft pick coming out and decided to go back to Tennessee for one more year. The guy in St. Louis, Bradford, did it and had the shoulder injury. Didn't seem to slow him down. So it's a tough decision for Andrew, I'm sure. But when he does come out, I'll be shocked if he's not a very good NFL quarterback.
Next question. We'll go right here on the inside aisle.
Hey, Vic. Like a lot of the Virginia, I'm Aaron McFarling with the Roanoke Times. Like a lot of the Virginia media were writing stories about Harbaugh this week, and I'm just curious, could you give kind of a capsule glance at him from your perspective? What's he like with his staff, and what kind of a team manager is he?
Well, he does a great job managing the team, managing the staff. Jim's kind of a guy that lets you do your job. He's not a micromanager by any stretch of the imagination. And maybe because, for the most part, things have gone well defensively, that's the way I see it. If we were having a rough year, maybe I'd see it differently. But he's not a micromanager type of guy at all. Knows the game of football, both as a player and as a coach. I think one thing Jim's done different than a lot of ex-players that want to get into the coaching profession, Jim knew that he needed to develop as a coach, just as he needed to develop as a player when he was going through that process. And when he was done playing, became a quality control guy with the Raiders, took a 1AA or Division II coaching job at San Diego University, and then worked his way to Stanford. He wasn't one of those guys that said, okay, I'm played in the NFL for 15 years. I'm ready to coach at the highest of levels and be a head coach. He knew he needed to develop, and I don't think he's ever lost that work ethic.
And all the way to your left in the front row.
Hi, Coach Steve Wine with AP. As a relative newcomer to this program, what can you say about how far it has come so quickly? Do you hear horror stories about the old days, 4 or 5 years ago? What kind of things do you hear about what it was like then? And what would you say about the job that Harbaugh has done to bring it so far so quickly?
Not having been here, I can't answer that question totally, but I think the one thing that you can say from what I've heard and just the feel I get is he's changed the culture there. Where Stanford before was maybe what I think it was too easy to give in to what Stanford was expected to have football-wise and what type of players Stanford could have and develop. And and he changed that culture, playing good, hard-nosed, tough football, coaching them tough, be demanding, expecting them to do and play just like the players at Virginia Tech are expected to play. So, he brought the program, I think, some respectability and put a lot of accountability on the players and was demanding to them to get out of the funk, whatever that was that Stanford football was in. And I think too many guys in the past probably let themselves be dragged into that. Can you hear much about the old days? Not really. I might hear a lot of talk about them being 1-11 in, I guess it was 2005, and I don't hear the horror stories about it. I think he's just changed the culture. There's a lot that goes in with coaching at Stanford that's different than any other BCS school, and you've got to overcome that, and you got to accept it, overcome it, and make it a rallying point and not a negative.
All right on the inside aisle again.
Heather Dinich with ESPN.com. To sort of build on that point, Frank Beamer talked yesterday about how this game features two programs that were really close to maybe something even more this year. So is there any sense of looking back as to what could have been, or given how far the program has come so fast, are you guys just ecstatic to be here?
Well, yes, we're ecstatic to be here at 11-1, but at the same time, we were beating Oregon at halftime, and as a team let it get away in the second half of that game, which I think was our 5th game of the season, which is our only blemish, and they're playing for the national championship. Virginia Tech, much the same way. They're 11-2. they make one more first down in the fourth quarter against Boise, I guarantee you they don't lose the next game to James Madison. And then you got a BCS debate of 3 undefeated teams and which 2 to take for the championship team. So it was right there for them, too, just like it was for us. We lost it, in the second half of the Oregon game. They lost it by not getting one more first down late in the fourth quarter and giving it up that late drive to Boise. So I think there is a lot of similarities, and both of us are to be happy and ecstatic where we're at, but you'll always think about that what if.
Back over to your left in the third row.
Vic, to build on what you said about Taylor earlier and being a great point guard, sort of that mentality, do you worry more about him as a scorer, as a runner, or as a distributor?
Both. Obviously, the running is the stuff that you really worry about because a lot of it comes on passing plays. With a guy like this, you always have to defend 2 plays when they call a pass. You got to defend the passing play they've called in their huddle and the route and the protection, and then you have to defend the play that he might create on his own. So it does cause you problems anytime you're dealing with a quarterback like this, and they do run the option game with him also, so that's a major deal there. And I think it's both. He throws. And I've talked to a couple ACC coaches. He throws the ball better than I think most people give him credit for. That was both the sentiments of the coach or 2 that I've talked to from the ACC, and my feelings after watching the tape also.
All the way to your right.
Coach, you mentioned trying to stop Tyrod when he uses his legs, but they also have 3 talented running backs that could start on most teams. How do you plan on defending those 3 different guys with their different styles?
A lot of hope. No, but no, their backs are very good. I don't know that there's another team in the country that has 3 backs of this quality. And I think all 3 of those backs will be in the NFL at some day. What's impressive about their backs is they run hard. They've got the speed to bounce it outside, but yet they're inside the tackle runners also. These guys move the pile after contact. You'll see them, the contact may come at the 25-yard line, but the guy doesn't miss the tackle, but all of a sudden the ball's at the 29, if they're coming out their own end, or it's at the 21 if they're going in. These guys bleed you for the extra 3-4 yards a lot of times when it's not really a missed tackle, but they're dragging the guy 3-4 yards. And to me, that's the mark of good running backs. Obviously, they've been well coached to run hard with their pad level and their intensity. And they do have some different styles. Number 4 will bounce it outside more so than the other guys, but the other guys bring it out there too. So they've got depth and quality at the running back position. I don't think many teams have in college football.
All right, just get a few chairs down to your left.
Vic, just to kind of cram 2 questions in here, just a quick follow-up on the coaches you visited around the country. Who were some of those guys? And then as a second question, it looks like you guys play a base 3-4, but in reading some stories, it's flexible kind of into a 4-3. Could you talk about some of the adjustments? I'm not quite sure what the guys played last year. Some of the adjustments going from the scheme that they played into the differences in the scheme that you played and some of the challenges in making those adjustments.
Well, some of the biggest adjustments they had to go through was position changes for some of them. In particular, Chase Thomas and Thomas Kaiser were out, defensive ends in the previous system, and they became our outside linebackers in the 3-4. That was a major difference for them. They had 2 defensive tackles in the previous system. Now we have 1 nose guard and 2 ends. We basically play with 3 defensive tackles rather than 2 tackles and 2 ends. But to address you saying that it's kind of developed into a 4-3, but it's not developed into a 4-3. What it's happened is you're playing all these 3 and 4 wide receiver offenses. We're in a lot of nickel and dime defenses, which a nickel and dime defense in many ways is just a 4-3 with DBs playing 2 of the linebacker positions. So we've played a lot of nickel and dime, 5-6 DB packages just like most teams do. So that's when probably the teams are saying, well, hey, these guys they're really not a 3-4. And, we don't play a whole lot of 3-4 against 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, though, but we do some. So we're a 3-4 base, but we play as much nickel and dime as we need to. So And probably if you were to sit down and do the numbers this year, I haven't looked at it yet, we probably were in more nickel or dime or sub defense than we were in base, just because of the nature of the offenses we've seen and, you know, the scores of our games, because they've fourth quarters when we've had some large leads.
We are going to take a few more questions from you all, but I want to let you know that the player interview room is open right now as well. It's Scove, Kaiser, Thomas, Fua, Howell, and Sherman. So we'll give about a few seconds for you all to clear or start moving out of the room, and then we'll take our next question. All right, you can go ahead. We're going to follow up right there.
And Vic, just some of the coaches that you visited around the country to kind of familiarize yourself, or did you go visit these guys, or just talk to them on the phone, or?
Both. I visited with Bo Pelini out at Nebraska, who's been a longtime friend of mine from when he had a couple years in the NFL. Visited with a bunch of guys on the phone. Visited with some guys at the 1AA level, because they deal with it a lot at that level. So, you know, one beyond me to go visit there. You know, I visited with at last year was the national champion Villanova, you know, because those guys had to deal with those types of spread offenses, even more so at that level than at the 1A level. So it's good to just hear different thoughts and different ideas. I didn't go to any place looking to find things to put in, just learn more about it.
Back over to your left.
Vic, is Taylor a possible NFL quarterback based on your, and what would he need to do?
You know, like a lot of the athletic quarterbacks, you know, the Vince Youngs, the, you know, Tebow. Give me another name or two that's come out there. You know, those types of guys. You know, they got to work on being more of a pocket passer and developing accuracy and timing that goes with being a competitive NFL quarterback. But I think this guy definitely has the tools to do that. He's just going to have to develop. You know, will he be Vince Young, who's had some success? Will he be Pat White, who came down here and right now I think he's playing baseball, right, from West Virginia? There's all different varying degrees of success stories in the NFL with quarterbacks such as these, but I think this guy has got talent and some gifts that are going to intrigue some people.
Any other questions?
There's one right there.
Just kind of based on only on reading a story about you and the defense, it sounds like the players kind of have a healthy fear of you. Is that by design, or, I mean, is that something you came in trying to establish, that authority, or do you think that just happened maybe because it's one voice as opposed to having, you know, a co-defensive coordinator as they had last year?
You know, maybe that last point is one thing, but I don't think, you know, they were hungry for improvement. You know, they had an 8-5 season last year. You know, many people thought if they were better on defense that it would have been better, maybe more like what they got this year. So they were hungry for improvement. I think they were intrigued by my past experiences, and I think they, you know, any fear, and I don't think that word is a good word. These guys don't fear me. I think they respect, but that they felt was self-inflicted. I didn't inflict it on them, and but I think we just developed over time. We had a very good spring practice session, you know, going against our own offense and Andrew Luck, which is a really good offense. We more than held our own against those guys in spring, likewise in the fall training camp, and then started off well. So you gotta do good things to develop confidence. You're not going to just get it in a meeting room or on a practice field, and so I think it just developed.
He did call it a healthy fear, though.
Who did? I did?
No, he did when he asked the question.
Oh.
We've drawn some comparisons of players and such, but looking at Virginia Tech's offensive style, do they compare favorably to just sort of what they try to do and how they do it to anybody you guys have faced this year?
Yeah, they're kind of a cross between a conventional offense, you know, the quarterback's under center, run, play action passes, that are just like any NFL team or more of a convent like our offense is. But then at the moment's notice, they'll be into the gun and running the gun reads and the option games and the fly sweeps. So to me, they've got a really good college offense, one that I think is kind of maybe the best to be in. And it's conventional, but yet it's got the ability to go to the option game, the spread game, the fly sweeps to make you prepare for a lot of things. But you might get a game where they're just going to try and hammer the ball at you and challenge you physically, or you might get a game where they're going to spread you out and run a bunch of the option stuff. So they give you a lot to prepare for, and I think they've done a great job offensively. They're very talented.
Is there a guy on there? You talked about Taylor and the tailbacks. Is there any other individual that you're keenly aware of will be focused on as you've kind of looked at tape and prepared for them?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a quarterback, running back driven offense, but their tight end is an integral part to what they do also. He's a good blocker. They like to throw him the ball, particularly down in the red zone. And I think the receivers as a unit are very solid. So, I mean, you don't score over 40 points as many times as these guys have. I think it's at least 5 or 6 that without talented players and a good offensive scheme. So they're well-rounded, and they've got balance. They've got balance both from the run-pass standpoint, and they've got balance from the schematic standpoint. And try and run a conventional offense and then more of the fancy college offenses that everybody's running these days.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Oh, did you?
Oh.
Coach, do you see any specific matchups with your guys that you guys feel are kind of key to stopping that kind of attack?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that's going to be for us is how well do we tackle? Are those running backs making us miss? Are they dragging us for that extra 3 or 4 that I was talking about? Or are we getting them down before that happens? How are we handling the quarterback in open spaces? Or are we getting him down? Or is he making us miss and turning it into a schoolyard game where he really excels? To me, it's going to come down to tackling. I know that's a boring answer, but these guys, their running backs and quarterbacks are so talented that if we don't have our best tackling game, we could be in for a long night. It could be they're going to score a lot of points.
All right, now, Coach, thank you very much. Virginia Tech coordinator Brian Steinspring will be in here for the press conference next.
All right.